Her napkin fell. She didn't notice, but he did. He bent down, picked it up, and placed it gently on her lap, his fingers brushing her thigh like they belonged there. "And my wife?" She thanked him. Not awkwardly, not politely, but with that soft, slow smile she used to save for me when she thought I wasn't looking. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't misreading body language. I was watching it happen. This man walked straight to our table at Porter's Steakhouse, reached across the candlelit space between us, took my wife's hand, and smirked like I wasn't even in the picture. And maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was just a placeholder filling the other side of the booth while the real show began. "Didn't think you'd actually come," he said to her, completely ignoring me. She didn't respond. Not verbally, but her eyes said everything. I set down my glass too hard. The ice clinked in protest. "Sorry," I said like a fool. "Is there something going on here?" That's when he finally looked at me. The kind of look you give a confused waiter or a barking dog. Mild amusement. No threat. No respect. "She didn't tell you?" he asked. My stomach folded in on itself. "Tell me what?" He leaned back and folded his hands like this was some kind of negotiation. "Maybe this is better done privately. My wife didn't say no. She didn't say anything. She looked at her plate like it might save her." I laughed. It came out wrong. Too loud. Too cracked. "I don't think so," I said. "You don't get to just show up, touch my wife, and then try to whisk her away like this is some movie." But they kept looking at each other. Like I was noise. Like I was just the flickering candle between them, temporary. He stood up. I stood up too. And that's when she spoke. "Sit down, Emery." My knees buckled. I sat. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't want to know what would happen if I didn't. Maybe because hearing her say my name like that, flat, emotionless, almost cold, shut something down inside me. She turned to him. 5 minutes. He nodded like he expected it. Like this was a script they'd already rehearsed without me. She got up, picked up her purse, slid out of the booth, didn't even look back, and they walked away together, without me. I sat in that booth for 22 minutes. I know because I watched the wax drip down the candle as I waited, watched the server come by, glance at the empty seat across from me, and ask, "Are you still dining with us?" I nodded, but I wasn't sure if I was. Because something ended at that table. Something came undone. And what happened next? Let's just say the worst part hadn't even started yet. They didn't come back. Not after 5 minutes. Not after 15. Not after the server cleared the bread plate and refilled my water out of pity. I was still gripping my fork like it was the only thing keeping me upright, staring at the seat across from me like she might reappear if I just blinked hard enough. But she didn't. Shiloh didn't come back. And neither did he. The silence around me was suffocating. I couldn't even hear the music anymore, just the ambient clinking of other people's forks and glasses. It was like watching a movie of a life I wasn't in anymore. My eyes kept going to the elevator at the far end of the rooftop. A couple emerged holding hands, smiling, tipsy, and in love. I almost laughed at how badly the universe was mocking me. I finally checked my phone. One new message. From Shiloh. It said, "Please don't make a scene. I'll explain later. I'm sorry." Just that. No punctuation after later. No heart emoji. No "I love you." Just, "I'll explain later." My fingers went numb. I couldn't even type a reply. I just sat there, rereading those 8 words like maybe I'd missed some hidden meaning that made it less devastating. But no, there was no typo, no misunderstanding. She left me at the table. With him. To explain later. I didn't move for a while. I just let the shame settle over me like thick humidity, sticky and choking. People walked by, glanced at the empty seat, and then looked away. That pitying look. The one I'd seen men get before. I used to think, how did he not see it coming? Now I was the guy. When I finally stood up, my legs wobbled. I must have looked drunk, even though I hadn't touched my drink. I left cash on the table, too much, and stumbled out without looking back. In the car, I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there with the window cracked and the summer air wafting in, heavy with cut grass and street oil. I could still smell her perfume on my collar. That soft gardenia scent she always wore. The one I bought her for our anniversary last year. She wore it tonight. For him. I don't know how long I sat there. At some point, I opened the text thread and typed a message. Who was he really? But I didn't send it. Because I already knew the answer. Not logically. Not with facts or dates or receipts. But in that deep, soul-crushing way your gut knows something before your brain dares to admit it. I knew she wasn't just having dinner with a coworker. I knew this wasn't spontaneous or innocent or fixable with one long, apologetic conversation. I just didn't know how far it had gone until I got home. Because when I walked into our apartment, I noticed three things. Her shoes weren't by the door. The wine glasses were gone from the dish rack. And on the kitchen table, there was a folded piece of notebook paper with my name on it. Not a sticky note. Not a text. A note. I didn't open it right away. My body moved on its own, like it wanted to avoid the truth for a few more minutes. I put my keys on the counter, kicked off my shoes, turned on the light above the sink. Then I sat down, hands shaking, and unfolded the paper. It said, "Please don't hate me. I'll be back in a couple of days. I need time to think. Please give me space. I didn't expect tonight to go this way. S." That was it. No explanation. No mention of him. Just vague, empty words from someone who already knew exactly what they were doing. I stared at the note until the lines on the page started to blur. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, hollow, like my brain had hit some emergency switch and shut everything down except my heartbeat. And I don't know what scared me more, that she walked out with him, or that she left just enough hope in that note to keep me waiting. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in our bed, my bed, staring up at the ceiling fan as it spun in lazy circles, slicing the silence into useless pieces. The other side of the bed was still made. She hadn't even fake slept in it before leaving. The blanket was tucked tight, pillows stacked perfectly, not one wrinkle to pretend she'd planned to come back soon. It was like she'd made a clean exit. And I noticed it then. Her toothbrush was gone. Not misplaced. Not pushed to the side like when she cleaned the sink. Gone. The electric one with the purple stripe. The one I bought for her last Christmas because she said mine was too loud. Her drawer in the bathroom, where she kept her night cream, floss picks, and backup hair ties, was emptier than I remembered. Not completely cleared out, no? That would have meant finality. That would have meant courage. But no, she left just enough to make it look like she'd be back. Like she was on a quick trip. Like she wasn't already on a different planet with someone else. At 4:37 a.m., I finally got up and opened her laptop. Look, I know how that sounds. Invading her privacy. But privacy doesn't exist when someone walks out mid-dinner and sends a note instead of a conversation. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't even looking for proof. I just wanted clarity. Something. Anything to help me breathe. She hadn't signed out of her messages. That's when my heart sank lower than I thought it could. There weren't many texts. She must have been deleting them. But one thread, she forgot one. It wasn't saved under his name. It was saved as J, but his tone was unmistakable. J. Told you he wouldn't make a scene. You okay? S. Yeah? I think he knew something was off. I just didn't expect it to feel this heavy. J. It doesn't have to. You're doing the right thing. S. I hope so. I didn't want it to happen like this. J. Then let's make sure what happens next is worth it. Worth it. Worth it. I stared at that line until it burned into my retinas. The words danced behind my eyelids like a curse. Was that what this was all about? Trade 8 years for something worth it? Some mystery man who showed up with a smirk and a plan? I didn't reply. I didn't forward it to myself. I just stared at the blinking cursor at the bottom of their conversation and wondered how many other messages she'd already deleted. How many lies had already been wiped clean? How many weeks or months? This had been going on right under my nose. She never used a lock screen. Said it annoyed her. That felt ironic now. I closed the laptop and sat in the kitchen with a mug of coffee I couldn't drink. The sun hadn't even come up yet, but the birds outside were already chirping like everything was normal. Like the world hadn't shifted underneath me. At 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Another message from her. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Can we please talk then? No apology. No explanation. Just an appointment. I wanted to scream. Throw something. Rip the note she left into confetti and mail it to that smug bastard she walked out with. But instead, I replied, sure. And that's when I made the first real decision I'd made in weeks. I wasn't going to wait around like some obedient husband in a holding pattern. If she wanted to talk, she could walk into a version of this house where the silence finally had a shape, where her absence would echo louder than anything I could say. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I packed a bag, not to leave her, but to disappear for just long enough to see what she really does when no one's watching. I had no plan, no destination, just my wallet, my keys, a change of clothes, and a spiral notebook where I started writing everything down. Every detail, every word, every lie. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but something was coming. Because if she was going to lie with that much effort, then I was going to find the truth with even more. I didn't go far. That's the part that surprises even me when I look back on it. I didn't fly to another city or crash on a friend's couch or hide in some motel under a fake name. I just drove across town and booked a room at the Harwell Inn, that old brick place across from the duck pond, where we once stayed years ago for our anniversary when the power was out in our building. Back then, it felt romantic. Now it felt like exile. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I left the house exactly as she'd left it. Quiet, confusing, full of half-truths. My only change: I removed the photo of us from the hallway wall. The one where she's leaning into me and laughing in the sun, like we're the kind of couple who finishes each other's sandwiches. I flipped it face down on the hallway table. I couldn't stand to look at it anymore. I stayed at the Harwell for a day and a half. Kept my phone on Do Not Disturb. Watched people come and go from the lobby like extras in someone else's movie. The staff recognized me. "We used to come here." The front desk clerk asked, "Just you tonight?" I nodded. Just me. And for the first time, that felt true. But I didn't stay hidden. On the second night, after staring at the popcorn ceiling for too long and trying to breathe through a tightness in my chest that wouldn't go away, I got in my car and drove past our apartment. I told myself I wouldn't stop, that I just wanted to see if her car was back. It was, but I didn't keep driving. I parked across the street. Lights were on inside. The curtains were open just a little, like they were daring me to look. And I looked. She was sitting at the kitchen table, phone to her ear, twirling her hair the way she always does when she's nervous but pretending not to be. Her laptop was open. Next to it, a wine glass, half full, and on the back of the chair, a jacket, not hers. It wasn't mine either. I sat there in the dark like a loser in a crime novel, watching my wife in our kitchen with someone else's jacket draped on her chair like it had claimed territory. The car out front wasn't familiar. Rental maybe. Or maybe he had something to hide, too. I lowered my window, just a little. I don't know why. Maybe hoping to hear something. A laugh. A moan. A confirmation. And then it happened. The door opened. She stepped out. And she wasn't alone. Him. The same man from the restaurant. Darien. No suit this time. Just a t-shirt and jeans. Comfortable. Casual. Like this was his place too now. They were laughing about something. Her head tilted back, hand on his shoulder. Then she said something that froze my blood. "Don't worry. He won't be back tonight. He said he needed space." Me. She was talking about me like I was an afterthought. And Darien? He laughed. Mocked me. I give it a week. He's the type who'll forgive anything if you cry hard enough. I couldn't move. Not out of fear. Out of humiliation. Because he was right. I was the guy who had waited. Who answered her texts. Who sat at the table while she walked away with another man and still made sure she had gas in her car and clean towels in the bathroom. They walked to his car. He opened the door for her. And then she kissed him. Not a peck. Not a maybe. A full mouth-to-mouth, slow kiss. The kind that makes time stop. The kind she hadn't given me in months. And then they left. Together. I drove back to the Harwell shaking. Not crying. Just buzzing. Like every nerve ending had been dipped in acid. I didn't know what to do. What to say. Who to call. I had never felt so disposable in my entire life. But one thing was suddenly, painfully clear. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't about needing space. This was war. And she had no idea what I was capable of when I stopped begging and started paying attention. I didn't go home that night either. Not because I was scared of what I'd find, but because I wasn't ready to face her with the old version of myself. The version that begged, rationalized, forgave. The man she could manipulate with a look and distract with a tear. That Emery had been folded up like a cheap lawn chair in the middle of Porter's Steakhouse the night she left with him. But now I was building a new version of myself. One who watched. One who listened. One who recorded everything. The next morning, I drove home around 6 a.m. Early enough that the streets were still quiet, and even the birds hadn't figured out what to sing yet. I parked half a block away, heart pounding like I was about to rob my own apartment. I didn't knock. I had keys. Inside, it was spotless. Too spotless. The kind of clean you do when you're trying to cover your tracks, but don't want it to be obvious. The air smelled like lavender and citrus, One of those artificial plugins we hadn't used in months. She'd lit a candle in the hallway. A peace offering or a distraction. Her coat was on the rack. Her shoes lined up like a magazine photo. The bed was made. Dishes rinsed and stacked. But something was missing. Her. She wasn't there. And that's when I knew she didn't stay the night again. The note she said she'd leave wasn't there either. No apology. No message. No half-hearted attempt at accountability. So I made one for her. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice memos app, hit record, and I spoke. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't cry. I just said what needed to be said. I know about him, Shiloh. I saw you. I saw everything. You didn't lie well. You just counted on me being too passive to look. You made me invisible at dinner. Then you made me a placeholder in our own home. But I'm not angry. Not anymore. I just want to know why. And I want you to hear, really hear, what it sounds like when someone stops begging for love and starts reclaiming their dignity. I placed the phone on the kitchen table, screen up, still recording. Then I walked out, locking the door behind me, and waited in my car. She came home around 7:15. Hair brushed, makeup light, wearing a shirt I didn't recognize. Darian's? Maybe. She walked in like she didn't expect to be caught. The kind of walk that says, I've rationalized this already. I've got the story ready. She tossed her purse on the couch, kicked off her shoes, poured herself a glass of orange juice. Then she saw the phone, paused, picked it up. She didn't say anything for a long time, just listened. And I watched from the car as she sat down at the kitchen table, exactly where I had sat 2 nights ago, alone, and her entire body started to cave in. Shoulders hunched, legs pulled up. Her hand went to her mouth, as if to silence some sound that didn't come out. She played the memo again, then a third time, and finally, she started to cry. I wish I could say it satisfied me, that I felt some surge of revenge. But I didn't. Watching someone break doesn't undo the pain they caused. It just reminds you how little they thought of you when they made the choice to hurt you in the first place. I walked back in 20 minutes later. She was still at the table, still crying. When she saw me, she stood. Emery. I held up a hand, sat down across from her, let the silence stretch like a warning. She sat too. And what came next wasn't yelling. It wasn't a fight. It was something far worse. It was her confession, but not the kind I expected. Not some simple, I made a mistake, or it didn't mean anything. It was deliberate, strategic, like she'd rehearsed it. And by the time she finished, my hands were shaking. Because the affair? That was just the start. What she said next. It tore the ground out from under everything I thought I knew about the last year of my life. I expected her to cry through the whole thing. I thought she'd break down, beg, swear it was a mistake, promise to fix it. Maybe throw in some self-pity and try to make me console her. That's what I thought I was walking into when I returned and sat across from her after the voice memo. But Shiloh didn't beg. She didn't even blink. She dried her tears, took a deep breath, and said something that made my blood run cold. I didn't cheat on you for love. I cheated because I needed a way out. There it was. Not a sob. Not guilt. Not even shame. Strategy. She said it like she was pitching a merger. I asked what she meant, and she just laid it out, piece by piece. Like a confession she'd practiced 100 times in front of the mirror with her lawyer's voice on. I've been planning to leave for a while, she said. But I didn't want to blow everything up before I had options. I stared at her like she was a stranger. Because that's exactly what she was now. This wasn't the woman who once traced smiley faces on my hand while we waited in line at the DMV. This wasn't the woman who cried at dog food commercials and used to say I was her safest place. This was a tactician. Options? I asked, not recognizing my own voice. She didn't flinch. I took the job at Ridgemont for a reason. Darian wasn't just convenient. He's connected. You don't understand how this world works, Emery. She stopped herself, but it was too late. Say it. I said, voice low. You're just simple. You stay. You hope. You don't plan. I do. That was the moment I realized she hadn't just cheated on me emotionally or physically. She'd cheated logically, coldly. She used our marriage like scaffolding, something to stand on while she built a life beyond it. And when it was done, she tore it down. I asked her if she'd ever planned to tell me, or if I was just supposed to wake up one day and find divorce papers on the table next to a half-empty coffee cup. She actually smiled. I was going to wait until next quarter, after your mom's surgery, after the holidays. I didn't want to make it messier than it had to be. Like she was doing me a favor. My ears were ringing. My hands were numb. I felt like I was floating a few inches above my body, watching myself dissolve. But there was something else. A flicker. A detail I hadn't heard before. Ridgemont. I'd never heard her mention that name. Not once. And she never talked about her clients, at least not with specifics. I asked her what it was. She dodged. It's just consulting, she said. But I knew that tone, that live voice, that thin layer of fake calm she only used when she wanted me to back off. So I didn't back off. I started researching the moment she left the apartment. She didn't slam the door. She didn't shout. She just said, "I'll come get my things next week. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." That was the last sentence I heard before I opened her laptop again. No passwords now. She'd removed them. Confident. Arrogant. And it only took 15 minutes to find the file she forgot to delete. A PDF titled Q3 Forecasts, Ridgemont Core Strategy. PDF. It wasn't a forecast. It was a presentation slide deck. About me. Well, not by name. But it listed case study. Phase-out transition of marital partnerships for female executives. Real estate division. A grotesque, clinical, emotionless strategy document explaining how a select group of women were coached through the exit process of long-term domestic partnerships, designed to minimize financial damage while maximizing emotional control of the departing partner. I was reading my own erasure on a white paper template. And Shiloh? She was listed as one of the pilot cases. I wanted to vomit. It wasn't just infidelity. It was a rollout plan. There were steps, messaging cues, a glossary of phrases to use that sounded kind but were meant to confuse. I need space. I'm not in a place to talk yet. This is about me, not you. They'd engineered every phrase she'd fed me for weeks. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was a case study. And the man she left with? He wasn't just a lover. He was a consultant. Maybe more. Maybe less. But definitely not just a guy from work. The rage didn't come right away. It crept in slowly. Not loud. Not fiery. Cold. Focused. Dead quiet. Because now I had something better than anger. Now I had evidence. I didn't sleep after reading the file. I didn't need either. All I could do was pace our apartment, my apartment now, I suppose, while replaying everything she'd ever said to me over the last 6 months, trying to figure out which parts were hers and which parts came from that grotesque corporate script. She hadn't just fallen out of love. She'd outsourced it. I printed the PDF. Every page. I wanted something physical to hold. I wanted the weight of the betrayal in my hands, not just on a screen. Each sheet felt like a punch. Her name in the margin. Her initials next to feedback bullets. Quotes I remembered her saying out loud in our bedroom, now annotated with phrases like conflict softener and delay mechanism. I wasn't in a marriage. I'd been in a case study. But here's the thing. You can only push someone like me so far. I might be simple. I might be loyal. I might be slow to react. But I'm not stupid. And I don't stay down. So I called my cousin Reese. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. Not since the failed ski trip and the great who gets to keep grandma's toolbox war. But he was the only lawyer I knew who wouldn't ask too many questions. He worked in contract law now, but he still owed me a favor from back when I covered his rent for 4 months after his startup imploded. I sent him the deck. He called me back 12 minutes later. "Jesus Christ, Emery," he said. "This isn't a divorce strategy. This is corporate warfare." I told him what happened. Everything. And to my surprise, he didn't talk down to me. He didn't smirk or say, "I told you so." He just listened. Then he said, "If they're coaching her to manipulate the separation for financial gain, and if she's using language from that document to manage your emotional and legal response, then yeah, you've got something." I asked what I could do. He gave me 2 words: document everything. So I did. Every message. Every call. Every note. Every conversation. I bought a small voice recorder and slid it under the living room shelf. I backed up her emails. I screen recorded the open PDF. I checked timestamps. I watched old footage from our Ring doorbell. I even found a clip from 2 weeks ago, her whispering on the phone in the driveway with someone she called Jay. Same voice from the texts. Darien. And then I found something else. A hidden folder on our shared drive labeled Personal Budgeting, Q3. It wasn't budgeting. It was exit forecasting. A spreadsheet of what she'd take, what she'd leave, and how she'd present it to me. Even a breakdown of how to get me to agree to sign off on joint assets without realizing what I was losing. I wasn't even Emery in the doc. I was partner A. It made me physically nauseous. But I kept reading. Because beneath all the spreadsheets, there were weaknesses, points of failure, timing, legal assumptions. Even Darienne's name wasn't protected in metadata. She'd gotten sloppy. Maybe from overconfidence. Maybe because she assumed I'd never look. But it gave me what I needed. Proof that she was leveraging a consulting firm's resources to manipulate the dissolution of our marriage under the illusion of a personal crisis. In other words, fraud. Reese confirmed it. If we get this in front of the right mediator or judge, it won't just hurt her. It'll stain everyone attached to this. He was right. So I made a plan. Nothing theatrical. No big confrontation. No broken plates or shouted ultimatums. I called her that evening. Calm voice. Collected. I told her I'd like to talk, civilly, and that I understood now that things were more complicated than I'd realized. I told her I respected her choices and just wanted to discuss how we move forward in a way that preserves dignity. She took the bait. We set a meeting. Saturday. At the apartment. Just us. But what she didn't know, Reese would be there too. Quietly. In the next room. Listening. Taking notes. And the voice recorder? It would already be running. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to let her talk. Because when people think they've won, they talk too much. And when Shiloh opened her mouth on Saturday, she'd hand me everything I needed to bury the career she tried to destroy me for. She came in like nothing had changed. Hair done. Lipstick on. Holding her laptop like a briefcase. Like we were about to have a calm discussion over coffee and clipboards. Like she was still running the show. But something had changed. Me. She didn't know it yet. But the Emery sitting across from her at that table wasn't the same man she'd trained herself to outmaneuver. He wasn't confused anymore. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't waiting for her to come clean. He already knew. She took a seat, crossed her legs, and started talking. Talking fast, like someone trying to control the air in the room before they lost it. She brought up emotional growth, individual identity, respecting each other's futures. All lines I'd already seen in that cursed PDF. Word for word. I let her speak. I nodded. I kept eye contact. I didn't interrupt. And all the while, the voice recorder was running beneath the fruit bowl. And in the room next to us, behind the slightly cracked guest room door, Reese was listening, quietly taking notes with the patience only a lawyer possessed when someone was giving them everything they needed to win. Then she said something that sealed it. I just need you to understand that this isn't personal, Emery. This is about alignment. Strategy. Strategy. She couldn't help herself. It was second nature now, speaking like a consultant, even when ending a marriage. And the moment she said it, I smiled. Because that was the moment she lost. I leaned back and said, "So, all of this was just business to you?" She paused, smiled cautiously. "Not entirely, of course. But you have to admit, this transition has been smoother than most." I nodded. Then I stood, opened the door to the guest room, and in walked Reese, holding a folder and a recorder. Shiloh's face collapsed like a building being demolished from the inside out. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Reese introduced himself calmly and handed her a copy of the PDF she thought she'd deleted, along with the spreadsheet and a written transcript of the last 7 minutes of her strategy session. She looked at me, eyes wild now. "What is this?" I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I just said, "This is my version of not making it messier than it needs to be." She stood up so fast the chair nearly tipped. "You ambushed me. You documented me," I said. "For months. With coaching. With psychological manipulation. With a plan to walk away clean and cash out everything I built while making me think it was my idea." She opened her mouth, closed it, sat back down. For the first time in years, she had no script. She tried to apologize. She said she didn't mean for it to go this far. She blamed Darienne, the firm, the pressure, the mentors. But none of that mattered anymore. Because now, I had control. Within a week, her consulting firm was contacted. The PDF made its way into internal review. HR legal. Darienne vanished from LinkedIn within days. Shiloh resigned voluntarily, but not before news of the manipulation model leaked through whispers at industry events. Her carefully constructed ladder had been pulled out from under her, one calculated lie at a time. We settled quietly. She walked away with far less than she expected, and far more shame than she ever planned for. But I kept the apartment. I kept my dignity. I kept my peace. And for the first time in a long time, I remembered what it felt like to breathe without wondering if someone else would twist the air in my lungs into leverage. A few months later, I changed jobs. Slower pace. Better people. I even started writing again, something I used to do before life became a battle between suspicion and survival. One night, Reese texted me a meme of a cartoon knight slaying a dragon labeled corporate divorce fraud. It made me laugh harder than I'd laughed in a year. And just last week, I deleted the folder. The PDF, the voice memos, the transcripts, not out of forgiveness, but because I didn't need them anymore. That chapter is over. And for once, I get to write the next one.